Hello and welcome to the Planet Playground podcast with me, Sports Travel Tom. This is the podcast that explores our planet through sport and adventure because our planet is our playground. Speaking to those who have travelled the world, competing in, watching and experiencing the very best sports events and adventures. For the first ever episode of the Planet Playground podcast, I am delighted to be joined by a former tennis player who became the first person to win a gold medal for her nation at an Olympic Games. Monica Puig, hello.
I just had to add a little fanfare in there.
Love it. It's a good start. It's a strong start. Welcome to the Planet Playground podcast, Monica. You are the perfect first guest, really. You've travelled extensively through sport, and since tennis, you've moved into marathon running, Ironman events, and of course, still travel the world in media roles as well. So thank you so much for being guest number one. It's delightful to have you here.
No, it's an absolute pleasure for me having worked with you and just knowing how much, we love sport, we love travel. When you pitched me this idea, I was like, okay, when do I start? When can we start recording? It's really exciting.
Thank you so much. I think, look, there are two things that I've always believed bring the world together, sport and travel, and both of them individually. But then when you bring them together as well, it's such a unique and such a great experience, and the friends you meet and the experiences you get to have for yourself are so good, whether you're playing as you did for many years or, of course, as a fan as well. First of all, by the way, I have to say congratulations on your pregnancy. Almost world news. If you Google your name, it's everywhere.
I know it's at the beginning I was very shocked and kind of this new transition into the role of being a mother in a few months, but now it's kind of shifted more into excitement and proactivity and kind of thinking, okay, what is it exactly that I need to do? We started buying all the things. So it's actually getting real now instead of, the fear. It's more of like, now I'm ready to dive right in.
And do you know the sex of the baby?
Yes. So it's a girl, which, is absolutely amazing. I was kind of indifferent. I was going to be happy whether it was a boy or a girl, but my husband actually wanted a girl because his cousin had a girl about a year ago, a little girl, and we actually got her to see her a little bit more grown up than when she was born last Thanksgiving. And she had him wrapped around her finger. So that was like his moment that, okay, it would be really cool if we had a girl. So it was a full circle moment when we found out.
Absolutely. And a future WTA star, no doubt.
I mean, I've been talking to some of my friends who have played on tour, who have kids, and we're already, we've already decided on doubles pairings, what the parents will be doing while they're practicing and playing. There was a discussion about Wimbledon doubles teams. While the parents are having Pims and strawberries and cream on the sidelines, they'll be duking it out on the court. But it's really exciting. And, whether it's tennis, we definitely want her to be very active in sports in general because we come from a very big sports background. It's just fun to, no matter what she chooses, to see how she develops and how much she loves being outdoors, which is the most important part.
One of my most recent memories, of course, is the two of us in Abu Dhabi presenting the Mubadala Abu Dhabi Open. And it was Belinda Bencic who won the title. And you got quite emotional, didn't you, when she brought her newborn baby onto court to celebrate the trophy with?
I did. We've actually become quite close. Not that to say we weren't close when we were playing. We were actually really good friends. But, once I went my separate ways, she went her separate ways. And then we kind of reconnected a little bit before Abu Dhabi. And we have been quite close, talking about all things kids and how we, are going to manage things. And it's been really cool to see her trajectory after becoming a mother and how quickly she's been able to kind of get a grasp on things, because I know, being pregnant is it's very difficult in so many ways because your body is undergoing so many changes. Psychologically, you're going through so many changes. I can't even imagine what postpartum is going to be like. But for her to have this vision, this goal, I think she has a great support system in her husband, who's also her fitness coach. Her coach is very understanding as well. So it takes a village, and I think she has the right team in place, which is really cool to see. Also, Alina Svitolina has been one of those players who has come back, surging after becoming a mother. So, I take my hat off to them. If I could do it, unfortunately, because of the injuries, I can't. But I'm looking forward to diving into Ironman as soon as she's born as well. So, going to be kind of drawing some inspiration from that and taking it into my own path.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great moment, wasn't it, with Belinda, and so inspirational as well for her comeback. And then she did well, of course, at Indian Wells shortly after Abu Dhabi as well. It's been a brilliant comeback for her.
Yeah, and it's really cool to see again how she's able to separate her personal life from the work. I remember seeing her in Abu Dhabi giving her daughter dinner before she went out on court, and she was like literally about like 15 minutes from taking the court, and she was giving her daughter dinner. Kind of maybe that got her into a very relaxed headspace. Not comparing the two, but before the Olympics, I would kind of disconnect when it wasn't my time to perform or to play, and I would turn it on immediately when I had to take court and stuff. But maybe that was it for her. That good disconnect between the two maybe gets her into the right frame of mind. And she's also said that no matter what happens in tennis from here on out, she's already won because she has the most important things in her life, which is her husband and her daughter. So that's a really fresh perspective and a really good one as well, because, we as athletes, we see our sport as the number one thing in the world. And in reality, it's so much tinier than that. It's just like a small little grain of sand in a very big beach.
Let's take it back to the beginning then. I mean, when did your love of tennis first start to roam around in your head? When did you fall in love with the sport, really, and start to think this could be something I could make a career out of?
Well, I mean, it was kind of tough because I was a very active little girl. I was the shadow of my brother. So everything that he did, I wanted to try to, as younger siblings normally do. So he did baseball, taekwondo, swimming. I wanted to try all those things, but realized that they really weren't for me. I got into ballet with a friend. Once that friend moved away, I didn't want to do it by myself. And my mom had played tennis when she was growing up and introduced me to the sport, essentially, gave me the first racket, took me to some clinics. And I thought the clinics were super fun because you would play games. It was like 3 times a week. And then, I wanted to get the big tennis bag. And I remember I was tiny. I still, I feel like I'm average in tennis, but still not super tall. So the tennis bag was like towering over me. And, I would remember, the big jugs of water and stuff like that. But what was really fun was starting to compete because you would see the trophies there in the corner at the end of the weekend and you're like, oh, I want one of those. And so that kind of competitive nature in me started to grow because I really wanted these trophies. I really wanted to do well. um, and pretty much the dream and the ideal to become a professional tennis player kind of bloomed a little bit more like a 12 years old, so 6 years after I had started. um, because that's when I started to watch more professional tennis players on TV. I loved watching Jennifer Capriati, obviously the Williams sisters, Andre Agassi, just all of these legends in the sport, and wanting to be where they were, wanting to be in that same position. I was lucky enough to grow up in Miami, where they had at the time the Sony Ericsson, now the Miami Open. So my dad would always take me, my mom would always take me in that first weekend where we could watch a ton of matches around the grounds in the stadium, watching players play. And I remember telling my dad at one point, we were watching a player practice, and I was like, Dad, one day you're going to be sitting right here watching me practice. And then the full circle moment came many, many years later when I was practicing on one of those practice courts and my dad was actually in the stands watching me practice. So that was
Amazing.
really cool. But yeah, you just go through so many different phases. And, when you're a teenager, there's so many things that you have to go through, going through the national levels and then going to the international and the junior tour. And then that decision whether to turn pro or to go with a scholarship to the university. But my parents never really let me turn pro unless I could prove that I was good enough to turn this into a career, because it's very, very difficult to make a living as a tennis player if you're not really in like the top 50 in the world, which is, more opportunities to play in the 500 level, the 1,000 level, the Grand Slams, and the main draw. And so when I got to finally number 2 in the world, I had made 2 junior Grand Slam finals. My parents kind of gave me the okay, and they're like, okay, let's go all in, let's pursue this. And it was really a gamble.
Yeah. Can I just take you back to those first times of going to the Miami Open and a sporting event? I mean, I know in the UK, a lot of kids or adults will say, I remember the first time my dad took me to a football match and I just fell in love with the green grass and the stadium, the noise, the atmosphere. Can you remember what it was like when you first sort of walked up the steps in the stadium and saw the tennis court in front of you and the atmosphere was building and that anticipation before a match? And do you remember what you felt like when you saw all that?
I mean, I thought it was the greatest thing because there were so many people there to watch 2 players play a match. There, like, the stadium was full, the sun was shining. You know, you're in Key Biscayne, which is where it used to be. You know, that tropical breeze, you're next to the ocean. The grounds back then were very intimate, so lots and lots of people, which I thought was amazing. And the coolest thing about being at the Miami Open back in the day was that once the tournament was over, those are actually public courts that you can use. So, you know, I would tell my mom sometimes when we practiced there, oh, can we, even though it was more expensive, can we book the stadium court so that I could play there and kind of see what it was and kind of like walking around the tunnels underneath and stuff because it was all a public facility. So I was like, oh, wow. So this is like what the players see and this is what they do and this is their vantage point on the court and stuff. So, you know, being a little kid and being in that environment and all of a sudden, you know, you go around the shops and you want to buy the outfits that the players are wearing and it's like, wow, okay, so this is pretty cool. You know, and back then it's a sporting event. You know, you go and enjoy it. There's no pressure, there's no nothing. However, when it actually does start to become a job, you start feeling the pressure, you start feeling that expectation, you start feeling like, okay, I'm not just here to enjoy the scenery or the beautiful courts and there's people watching me practice, so I need to, you know, I need to act a certain way. There are children who are watching me practice. I need to behave accordingly because you're setting an example for them because they could be the next Monica watching somebody and you want to
Of course.
inspire them to dream that big. Um, you know, those early memories really were, and I think honestly, one of the reasons why I wanted to become a professional was because I had access to this incredible tournament, got to see some of the best players in the world play, and then just be like, all right, this is definitely what I want to do. This is where I want to be. This is the
Yeah.
pinnacle of everything.
Yeah.
Little did I know that there was even more of like a step up because, you know, that's a 1000 event, which is great. But there's the Grand Slam level, there's the Olympics, there's a whole other world too, and a whole other level to unlock.
The Miami Open is changed into such a beast these days, hasn't it? I mean, the stadium itself, the court itself, is a stadium within a stadium at the Hard Rock Stadium, isn't it?
It is, and I was able to play it for the first time and my only time in 2019, and I have some mixed feelings about it. You know, I think it's a great facility for the fans. I think it's very fan forward. Nobody's gonna feel like they're on top of each other like in Key Biscayne. Like I said, it was very intimate, very crowded when it got time to see some of these, you know, big players and a lot of players practicing. It felt like you couldn't really move around. This new facility has so much space. I mean, like so much space that you barely feel like anybody's even there, but there's a lot of room to roam. There's great drinks, food, entertainment, whatever you want. As a player, I feel like it's very big. You have practice courts in one corner, all the other courts are kind of spread out. And that stadium within a stadium's a little it's a little odd. It's kind of weird because you have like a very intimate kind of grandstand around and then you have this vast you know, already installed seats for when the Dolphins play in the big stadium. But still, I think, you know, nobody likes to feel like they're on top of each other. So they do a great job of, you know, a big open grass area, which is something that a lot of players like from Indian Wells, that they can warm up outside instead of having to be in a gym. So, you know, they're always trying to find ways to make the players comfortable, find ways to keep the fans engaged. So, I feel like they really thought outside of the box and they wanted to keep the tournament in Miami to have it going to Orlando or somewhere else that maybe potentially is not as an attractive destination. And Miami attracts a lot of South Americans, Latin Americans, people who can easily get to Miami, and it's such a popular place to come and to visit.
Yeah. As you say, after that experience, your junior career starts to go worldwide. You're traveling, you're reaching the final of Roland Garros at the French Open, of course. What was that sort of rise in the sport like? And were you prepared for just the amount of travel that you needed to do, as well as compete at the highest level as well?
I mean, I called myself a mini travel agent by the time I was 14. I could definitely, book my own train ticket in Europe. I could easily find my way around booking flights and finding the cheapest option and how to get where. And I have this story that, I was maybe 16 years old and I had to fly to Costa Rica to play an ITF. And back in the day when I was traveling just with my coach, the airline that I was flying, you needed like a waiver signed by the parents to fly with somebody who was not a family member. And my mom had dropped my coach and I off at the airport. I was training in Orlando at the time, and my mom was driving back down to Miami. And she was like an hour and a half into the journey. I'm like, Mom, I need this form. And obviously you needed to get it notarized, you needed the whole 9 yards. And I was like, we just can't do this, we're going to miss the flight. So I got on my laptop and I'm like booking other flights, and I was doing all of this like it was like 2 seconds, got it booked, flew there, and it was great. But
I'd imagine
you
you're
know
quite organised. I'd imagine backpacking around Europe as a teenager, or as a young adult, you'd be pretty organised with it.
Yeah, I mean, you learn how to blend in. Something that my husband likes to do, for example, and something that I like to do as well, is start to learn some of the basic words, no matter where you are, what country you're in, even if you don't speak the language. Learn how to say hello and goodbye in their language, please and thank you. That can go a long way, especially if you're a tourist who doesn't really know where they are. Um, because I feel like the locals really appreciate that you're making an effort. So that's something I always tried to do when I traveled somewhere new. I was young still, so I didn't stray too far from where I was supposed to be. I always went with somebody. But it was cool to learn a little bit about a new culture. I personally love airplanes, so flying was really cool, and getting to learn about all these different airplanes, different airlines, new hotels. And so as a junior, it was really fun for me. And the whole junior experience, basically what it is, it's preparing you for what your life is gonna look like as a pro. So the way that it works in the ranking systems, for example, is as a professional, every year they take your 12 best tournaments, and those points are what reflects your ranking. So every time you have a better result than something, those points get bumped and then gets replaced by this new set of points. And as a junior, you're pretty much exposed to the same system, except it's half. So you have 6 tournaments that you need to defend during the year. So the whole junior system is really cool because it's preparing you for what pro life is going to look like if you do decide to go pro. And very similar schedules, lots of tournaments around. So you need to be traveling, big tournaments, smaller tournaments, points that you need to defend. And the best thing of all were the Grand Slams, and being able to play in the second week of these Grand Slams and playing on these courts. So I got to the Australian Open Junior Final, for example, and I got to play on Rod Laver Arena, which is incredible. At the French Open, you play on some of these bigger courts as well. I got to play on the old Bull Ring Court 1, which was one of my favorites. So, they definitely help prepare you for what's to come.
Yeah, I can imagine that, because essentially when you're a junior, like you say, you're doing so much yourself, and you're trying to manage a tight group of people, aren't you? And you're booking your own travel, you're doing this and that, making sure you get to that tournament that you need to get to. But as soon as you start to become a professional and play the big events as a fully grown professional, then I guess the people around you, that increases responsibilities taken away from you, because all you have to do is concentrate on performing at your best.
Yeah, that's totally true. It's I mean, once you become a professional, like you said, things become a little bit more detailed. Things become um a little bit more serious because in juniors you're not making really any money and not it comes from sponsors once you do sign to be a professional. But then that jump, you're essentially paying your coach, you're essentially taking care of people. You're the CEO of your company and you need to take care of your employees. Um, Even though technically your coach is bossing you around a little bit and telling you what to do, but you are the captain of the ship and you need to drive that ship because everybody's depending on you. Everybody's depending on your results in order to also make ends meet for themselves.
And when you're on the road as well, of course, they've got to eat, haven't they? They've got to go down for dinner. And am I right in thinking you used to just give them your credit card essentially because it was your company? So, right, go and get yourself dinner. Yeah.
No, I mean, yes and no. So the way that I structured it is that I have my own company because, I am essentially a business and my coaches were employees. And so they had a company card and they would, if we weren't eating together and they wanted to go by themselves because I was tired, I wanted room service, they used that. But obviously there was, a budget in place because a lot of people think that tennis players make a lot of money, and while we do, we are also investing in our careers. Like I said, salaries, meal allowances, flights, hotels. The tournament doesn't pay for any of that. They pay for the players' room. I think now it's evolved into where they pay for the coaches' room as well. But it wasn't like that when I was playing. We had to pay for all of that. So whatever you bring in, you had to.
Did you put your coach in coach class on the plane or a bed?
I mean, we always try to make it fair. If the fares allow, like nowadays, looking at the cost of some of these flights, I don't even think I would fly business class unless I was doing really well. But yeah, no, if the flight was like over 6 hours, if we were going to Europe, my coach and I would always fly in business because when we would land, usually what would happen, like if we're flying to Europe, we get there in the morning, we go straight to the hotel, leave everything, maybe rest for an hour, go to the courts and practice, which I detested. I hated it because I felt very groggy.
Yeah.
I was very cranky after flights and stuff. So we tried, later on, that the travel day and the day that we arrived was the rest day.
Rest day.
But yeah, no, we always tried to make it fair. And I feel like that's why I always had some good relationships with my coaches because we always, there was never ever preferential treatment between the player and the coach. I always like to have very close knit teams. We always did things for each other. Essentially, we were a family because I would see them every single day. I knew them, they knew me. Sometimes with even a look, we could tell what's going on with the other person. So you have to have that kind of connection with the people that you're working with because at the end of the day, they're the people who you're seeing the most throughout the year, more than your actual family.
I mean, it's for a sports fan or a tennis fan watching the sport. Essentially, whether you're there or watching it on TV, the players are there and you watch the match, don't you? You don't think about all of the travel that is going on around you actually playing. For any sport, Formula One, for instance, you never think of the drivers are on their own private jets and flying commercial to the amount of races they have. But there's so much going on behind the scenes before you even get on court. It's quite extraordinary, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's preparation time. It's the meals you eat. It's the work with the physio, the work in the gym.
Yeah,
it's a lot. It really is.
Favorite plane to fly on? Not airline, but favorite plane. Have you got a favorite plane? I can tell you mine.
I used to love. Yes, I love the 777, the Boeing 777. Now it's kind of shifted to the Airbus A350.
You can't beat it.
I love the 380s still, even though I haven't flown one for quite some time. But the
Yeah.
350, living in Atlanta, I'm flying with Delta all the time. I'm always trying to find a flight with the 350 because I love that plane so
It's so
much.
good. Yeah.
I'm an aviation geek. I love airplanes. I love airlines. I love, just kind of even Googling and exploring new airlines and what they offer and where they go. That loving travel as much, that has become like a hobby.
Yeah, I mean, after this podcast recording, we can let's just get onto flight radar and let's just watch
I'm on
planes.
there. I'm on there like 8 to 10 times a day.
Yeah.
Sometimes I play a game with my husband where we go
Yeah.
outside and we see like the vapor trails. I was like, okay, where's that one
Yeah.
going to? And I point the phone, and we're constantly playing that game.
Living in
It's so
Atlanta,
fun.
living in Atlanta, you must see a plane in the sky literally all the time.
All the time. And it's really cool. The airport, a lot of people say that they hate the airport, but I've grown to love it. And one of the reasons is that you can pretty much get everywhere with one flight, which is great. Really no real need for connections, which is awesome. But yeah, I was fortunate that I grew up in Miami as well. So, that was a straight shot to many places that I traveled to as well. But travel is a big hobby of mine.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, it had to be really, didn't it, for the sport you were playing. In 2013, you broke into the top 100. Careers getting serious. You're building and building and building, and then, of course, 3 years later, the Olympic Games come around. What was that journey like for those sort of few years from breaking into that top 100 and then getting to the Olympic Games in 2016?
I mean, a lot of people ask me, what was the hardest part of your professional career? And while I say it was post Olympics, the injuries, those are definitely in the top three. I think the hardest one for me was breaking the top 100. That was really difficult because you come into this period where you're like 120, and then you do well at a couple of these lower level tournaments that are not yet WTA, and then you're like 112, 105, and then you dip back down to 110, and you're kind of like in this limbo for a while where you're trying to surpass that threshold. And I felt like once I pushed past that barrier, and it was actually, I remember where it was. I went to Portugal and played in Lisbon, qualified in that tournament, or maybe lost in the last round of qualifying, got in as a lucky loser, and then made it to, I think it was the quarterfinals, and then pushed past that barrier, got into the 80s. And then from there, it was a little bit easier to start building that momentum and start pushing through that ceiling. And then essentially ended up that European summer about 48 in the world, which was really, really cool. So that was really tough for me as a professional, because I felt like getting to the hundreds was a similar trajectory to once you push past that threshold. Like, you're winning matches, you're winning tournaments, and then the points start accumulating much easier. But then that was a big lesson in patience for me, to kind of a lot of people say trust the process and trust the work. And it's really hard because you want the results straight away. You want to see the results. And sometimes we see players like Mira Andreeva. Today we see, Alexandra Ayala, who all of a sudden have this big boom at a tournament. And all of a sudden it seems to click and they've got it and they're like soaring in the rankings. But sometimes it's a little bit more difficult than that. And I was always kind of the late bloomer in my group. So I'm a 93. So I played with Svitolina, with Garcia, with all of these players who are also in the similar age ranks as me. And we all played juniors together. And they were already in the top 30. They're doing really well. And I was like, well, okay, when is my time going to come, And finally, when I did have that breakthrough, it was kind of cool to kind of like be like, okay, now I can actually get my career started. And from there on out, had a couple really good years, won my first WTA title in 2014 in Strasbourg, which is amazing. Winning that first title for me was like kind of like a monkey off my back
Yeah.
because I always wanted to eventually retire from tennis and have something to show for it. Whether it was a title, whether it was a few titles, or getting high in the rankings.
Well,
But
I mean,
obviously,
you certainly do have something to show for it, don't you?
yeah,
I've just noticed, by the way, the necklace that you're wearing, uh,
yes, I
as
always need to have
and a
it.
little Olympic memento. Um,
Yeah,
love that. Can we talk about the Olympics? Because I mean,
yeah.
by far and away, it's an incredible achievement, not only for you personally, but also for, of course, your country, Puerto Rico, not having received a gold medal before you managed to achieve it in 2016. First of all, the Rio Olympics, I thought there was such a spectacle. You could that carnival atmosphere around the city, the atmosphere with the fans at all of the events. I mean, the Olympics is great for that anyway, isn't it? But Rio, there just seemed to be something a little bit more magic about it as well.
Yeah, you say that, and I didn't see any of it. I was kind of just in my own little
Yeah.
cocoon of being with the Olympic team. We are 48 athletes, so very small. I didn't really, I might have known a few people, but didn't really know anyone. So we were all kind of getting to know each other, um, kind of forming this really tight knit group who would, make plans to go to dinner together. A lot of the time we would hang out in our treatment room, not getting treatment, just like there with the computer with music playing and just talking and hanging out. Everybody had their, goals, dreams, a reason why they were there. We were all very disciplined on what we needed to do. For me, it was like this experience that when I got to Rio, it was like, I want to enjoy this experience because, knock on wood, I don't know if I'm ever going to play another Olympics ever again. And effectively, a few years later, I had my injuries. I wasn't able to. So I wanted to get the most out of that experience and understand what it was like to be an Olympian. Um, why so many people really want to get or qualify for an Olympic Games, because at the start of 2016, I was ranked 108 in the world. So my Olympic dreams were like almost shot. They were like nothing and didn't end up qualifying until like the very last week. So that was crunch time for sure. And then I went ranked number 34 into the Olympics, so nowhere near a seed. I had a pretty difficult draw, but I never really looked too far ahead in the draw. Again, I just wanted to enjoy what the Olympics was all about. So kind of went match per match. Um, and the funny kind of story was that after my first round match, it was kind of like a subpar kind of match. I was nervous. It was my first Olympic Games. Didn't know what to expect. Didn't really play my best match. But ended up winning. And then got off the court, and my coach was like, "We need to have a little conversation." And I was like, "Oh God, here we go." And so we sit down. He's like, "What was that?" Because obviously, he held me to a higher standard that was kind of like, "Look, this is what we expect of you." And I had been having an incredible summer. I had played some really great tennis. Like I think my confidence was at an all-time high. So this kind of match wasn't really continuing up to what I had played the entire summer. So my coach is like, "What are we doing here? Are we just here to just, hang out and have a good time or whatever, or are we here to compete?" And I kind of like I got mad a little bit. I was like, "Well, of course I want to have a good time. I'm at the Olympics. Like, when are we ever going to do this ever again? Like, it's incredible, but I'm also here to compete. Like, I'm not here to just like clock out in the first round." And so we he and I we were very close. So I saw him like an uncle. He was like a family member to me at this point. We were very close, and all families fight. So we were like fighting. I wasn't looking at him in the eye when he was talking to me. I was kind of like, when the parents like disciplining
Yeah.
the child just tunes out. So I tuned out, and my fitness coach was like, "You know what, this conversation isn't going anywhere. Let's just separate." So I went back to my room. He went back to his room, and we were just kind of, I kind of got into this, "I'll show you I'm not just here to hang out," whatever. And so a lot of people have told me that when I play with something to prove, I play better. And then the next day, um, you know, I was playing Pavlyuchenkova, really tough match in the second round. And we barely spoke in the warm up. He was telling me what I needed to do, but I was just kind of like, yeah, whatever. I'm listening to you, but I'm not going to acknowledge your presence, kind of thing. Kind of being a little bit of a brat, but in my way, just still kind of upset and hurt with that conversation. Ended up playing one of the best matches. It was insane. Like, everything was working. I did the game plan to a T, flawless, played super well, competed super well, and I won the match 3-2. Just like, it was all business. I got off the court and my coach is super happy. Obviously, he's like, that was incredible. I was like, you see, I didn't just come to hang out or whatever. And then he's like, so you're telling me that this whole match, you were just trying to like shove it back in my face? And I was like, well, when you put it that way, yeah. And then he's like, okay, can we play this way the whole tournament?
Yeah.
Or like, what are we doing? And I was like, fine. We made peace with each other. Everything was fine. It was a little spat, but then from there on out, the Olympics just kind of turned into this tournament where I was having a lot of fun. Usually my coaches, we would, after a match, no matter how it went, they would try and find a practice court and take me for 30 minutes to work on something specific, because the work continues well after what the match happens. Like, you win, that's great, but we're still on this learning process, and I usually hated it. I loved getting off the court, going straight to the locker room, taking a shower, and kind of turning it off. But here it was different. I was like, yeah, okay, let's go to the practice court, let's work on a couple things. And what
Do you
I
think
saw
that was a little bit of the Olympic charm in the air? Just the fact you're in the middle of this event and you just wanted to soak it all up all the time?
Maybe. I was having a great time. So I was like, you know what? What's another 30 minutes on the court? Because when I started to see that the things that we were working on each match, when I did them, they felt easier. So I was like, you know what? This is really helping. So let's do it. And then I also got into this kind of like superstitious mindset that was like, okay, if we don't go to the court for 30 minutes, I'm going to be screwed tomorrow. So after the quarterfinals, or when I got to the quarterfinals, I was like, I need to start reevaluating my whole expectation for how this tournament could go, because I'm playing too well not to believe that I can win this. Because what we see in women's tennis, it's if you wake up feeling great, it's anybody's match. You can't really say, okay, she's the favorite, so she's going to win it hands down. It's not that way. If anybody comes with that belief that they can do it, it's anyone's game. So I feel like the quarterfinals went super well. The semifinals, I was the most nervous I had ever been playing a match, but I played really well because I competed really well. Because the semifinals, essentially, if you lose that match, you're not guaranteed anything. You have to come back the next day to play for third and fourth. And playing a match after losing a heartbreaker in a semi, you feel almost hungover, because you're trying to get rid of that disappointment and focus on the task at hand, which is trying to secure a bronze medal. But after that, it was like, okay, I'm in the final.
Yeah.
I have won.
So
I relaxed.
That semi-final is almost like a mini final, isn't it, in a way? Because if you do win it, at least you've secured a medal. But then obviously you move on to the final, and there's only one outcome that you want.
Yeah, I mean, before that final, the semifinal was really hard. It was a 3-set match against Kvitova. Was won the first set, lost the second set because I kind of felt mentally exhausted. But I knew that third set, I was like, okay, I need to really put the turbo, because she was playing well, we were both playing well. And it was a really windy day. We couldn't warm up until like 10 minutes before going on the court, because it was raining that morning. And usually I would be freaking out. I mean, like, when something interrupted my process, I would freak out, because I'm like, oh God, I'm not going to have my regular 30-minute warm up. I'm going to have to warm up in my match outfit, because, as soon as that's done, we have to walk out on court. everything could have gone wrong, but I was just kind of like, okay, let's just take it in stride. Let's just roll with the punches. And that whole process was really mature for me, which should never happen, never again. But like before the final, I was just kind of like, it's a great day. Let me just focus on exactly what I'm doing at each moment throughout the day. Like, let me go and have breakfast. Oh, my agent arrived. Let me show him around the Olympic Village. Let's go to the gym and do some activation stuff because the final was later on in the afternoon. Um, and then even before the match, I was like, oh, we're watching soccer on the TV. And then all of a sudden, Nadal and Del Potro are playing their semifinals. So let's watch a little bit. And it wasn't until I'm starting to do the activation in the tunnel that I'm with my fitness coach. And I saw him as another dad. Like, he was a big father figure to me while we were traveling. We were very, very close. And he was from Argentina as well. And he knew Del Potro's team really well. So when Delpo beats Nadal, you know, um, Claudio was his name, says congratulations to Delpo's team, that they're waiting for him outside of the tunnel. Delpo comes running out of the tunnel, like jumps on top of his team, and they're like crying, celebrating because he had made a final. And then Claudio comes to me, like wraps his arm around me. He's like, you know what? In an hour and a half, that's going to be us. And that kind of moment just took over because I was so relaxed. And that was the first time that I actually was like, oh my God. Like, the weight of the moment started to sink in. I was like, oh, I need a minute. So I went to the locker room. And I believe in God, and I don't pray very often, but this time I was like, I need a second. So I'm like, you know what, God, just I know the weight of this moment. I know what it means. I don't care if I win or lose, because you always care, but I don't care because I already have something that no woman in Puerto Rico has done, win a medal. The only thing I want out of this match is to compete the best I can, to have a good time, and to enjoy the experience. Because it's the last match, no more after this in the Olympics, and let's just have a good time. And when I went out onto the court, that's exactly what I did. Like, I was just enjoying the moment. I only got nervous 2 times. Once when I was within 2 games of winning the match in the second set because I had won the first set, and I was that close. And then I didn't enjoy the match there. When we sat down at one set apiece, I was like, you see what happens when you don't enjoy yourself and you put so much pressure on yourself? You don't play as well as you should, or you forget about your game plan because you're so concerned with the result. And then finally, in that third set, I just kind of let go. I said, you know what? This is the last set. It's going to last maybe 25, 30 minutes, 45 minutes max. Leave it all out there.
Go for it.
Have fun. I was singing a song in my head, which kind of kept me in this little flow. I wasn't really, when they say in the zone, but you're there, but you're not there. I don't remember what the heck I did to get to 5-0 in the third set. And I snapped out of it at match point. And I was like, okay, what do I do now? Do I even know how to play tennis? Like, that whole thing started to come back. And I was able to close it out at 5-1. But it was like, what the heck happened in those 20 minutes? I have no idea. I was just kind of on autopilot.
What song were you singing to yourself?
So we had 2 songs. One song was like our kind of like theme song in the village with Team Puerto Rico, and it was Bicicleta, which is Bicycle by Carlos Vives and Shakira.
Right.
It was huge. It was huge in South America back then. So that was like the number 1 song everywhere. So we were just kind of like listening to it. So that was one of them. And then there was from the USA Gymnastics. This is when the Fab Five was like the Fab Five. And I remember NBC had put on a commercial kind of highlighting their events. And it was this song that's called That's My Girl by the Little Mix, I think it was. And that song just was so motivating because it's like, that's my girl, and like how hard you work to get to this moment, like the blood, sweat, tears kind of thing. It was so impactful that I was like, okay, that's my song. That's my song. That's a song that I want, and I would listen to it when I was warming up. because it kind of got me in that hype mode, like, this is your time, you are that girl. And so I was just kind of repeating those songs in my head, and that just kind of kept me loose, and didn't really help me, didn't allow me to think of the big kind of moment that I was in.
The key to Olympic success, behaving at times like a brat and Shakira songs.
Yeah. Yeah,
If only it was that easy.
I guess so.
I mean, it was Angelique Kerber, wasn't it? Of course, who you beat in the final. Was she world number one at the time?
She was number two.
Number two,
but she had won the Australian Open, and that year went on to win the U.S. Open as well.
That's right. Yeah,
I had never beaten her before. She had given me a couple of really good beatdowns before then. I thought she was one of the trickiest players to play.
Yeah.
So, we had done quite an extensive amount of homework before that match. Tried to identify her patterns, tried to anticipate some of her patterns. Playing a lefty, extremely challenging. I think it's so hard, especially at the beginning, kind of getting used to the spin going the other way. One of the advantages is that I had played Kvitova in the previous round. So that for me was great because I had played a lefty in the semis, playing a lefty in the final. So I was a little bit more in tune. Another thing is that Kerber didn't really hit the ball as big as Kvitova, for example, but she was just very consistent. So the way that she would win a lot of matches is that you would just mentally lose it even before. So I tried to tell myself to stay patient. She wasn't going to hit me off the court because I knew I could hit the ball just as big, but I needed to be very patient. I needed to be quick on my toes. I needed to find my opportunities without pulling the trigger too early. And it worked. I started seeing some of her patterns very clearly. I was fast, I was agile, I was relaxed. I did everything that I needed to do, and it all clicked.
It was an amazing moment. I remember your reaction after that match. I mean, floods of tears, weren't you? Did you realise what you had done?
No, I actually, it's funny because it still kind of doesn't feel real in a way. I watch the videos, I see the medal all the time, and it's just kind of like, that actually happened. Like, that was a real thing. And I think it doesn't feel real in a way because it was just I mean, nothing is ever perfect, but that week in general was just perfect.
It all came together.
Aside from the spat at the very beginning, that was less than perfect, but everything happened kind of the way that it was supposed to. My confidence that whole week was great. My headspace that whole week was great. Like I said, there was this disconnect that the minute I left the court, tennis was over. I didn't think about it. I put my bag in my room and I would just kind of enjoy that whole experience. And then the minute that it was time to get on the bus and it was business time, the blinders would go on and it would just be like, okay, what do I need to accomplish today? What do I need to do? And that was something that was huge. I couldn't replicate it after. I don't know why. I couldn't find that same strength. A lot of people said that when I played for Puerto Rico, whether it was in Fed Cup, whether it was for Central American Pan Am Games, or Olympic Games, I just became a different person. I can't tell you the reason why. I'm very patriotic, as you know, as many people know. I love Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is my home, will always be my home. I'd do anything for that country. I'd do anything for its people. But it was something that I could never find outside of that. And I tried, but I'm not sure why.
Do you think subconsciously you'd achieved the greatest thing you could ever achieve, and there was a little bit of you that maybe just it's obviously tough to get going again, isn't it?
Sure. Yeah, a lot of people talk about that post-Olympic depression because it's like, okay, what next? Maybe not in the tennis world because we always have tournaments that are after. A lot of athletes ask me afterward, okay, so you're done now. Like now you take a break and you get ready for the next Olympics. I'm like, well, we have the US Open in 2 weeks, so no. And it was kind of hard because while I was um, number 34 in the world, the previous 4 years prior in London was the last year that they had ranking points for the Olympics, and the ranking points would be the equivalent of a Grand Slam. So they didn't have that for Rio, and I would have ranked number 8 in the world if that would have, happened.
Yeah.
But still, it was a lot. It was a lot to deal with because all of a sudden I felt like I had a target on my back because of what I had done. Um, it was kind of tough to, you know, kind of not keep it going, but process that whole thing. I put a lot of pressure on myself, kind of thinking like, okay, I won this. Now I'm expected to do more. I'm expected to win more. And the kind of inconsistencies that came afterward were, tons of pressure. I did go through a severe bout of depression, and just because of the expectation on myself, tennis started to not become as fun because, I felt like I wasn't winning, therefore I was worthless. Like I tied my worth a lot to the wins and losses, and that was really hard. Not a lot of people understood when I was going through this depression. Nobody understood. And when I said I feel depressed, I feel like really profoundly sad and just like so much pain. They're like, but you're on top of the world. And one of the things that I kept hearing was, it's not fair for you to feel this way because of the life that you're living. And I was like, true, I'm living a very, I'm going to say privileged life because I'm making a lot of money, I'm traveling the world and things like that. But still, there's that internal pressure because you want to continue to be the best in the world and you want to continue to win. And when you don't get these results and when you're losing all the time, there was a lot of bullying on social media. There was a lot of people, all of a sudden saying that the Olympics was a fluke, that it was just lucky. And I was like, no, it wasn't lucky because I worked really hard for that week. And that whole year was, I mean, if you saw the year starting at 108 and getting to my career high ranking of number 27, I had a great year. And it was incredible. So no, it wasn't luck. It was just, all of a sudden I just couldn't handle that pressure expectation. And then obviously I start to find my feet again in 2018. 2019 was, okay. And at the end of 2019, I had, I think, the best preseason, one of the best preseasons, aside from the preseason of 2015 leading up to the Olympic year. And then I got hurt for the first time. And that was like the first time ever that I had to deal with an injury. And that was a new process for me as well, because having had an injury-free career was such a blessing, because I saw people, having to sit out for so long, and all of a sudden it happened to me, and I was like, oh God, what's happening? Because I'm finally starting to turn the page from this depression. I'm starting to feel better about myself. I'm starting to turn the corner, and boom, it happened. And that was in itself, I think, one of the hardest things.
Just going back to that self-worth thing as well, and attaching it to the highs and lows or the wins and losses. I mean, in tennis, you lose. I can't think of many other sports where you lose so often. What I mean by that is you could lose so many points within a game or a set, but you could still win the match. And then you could lose a set, you could lose a match. There's so many moments where you lose in tennis before you actually win.
And you're losing every week.
Yeah.
You lose every week.
Yeah, ultimately,
I mean, every tournament, there's only one winner. Yeah. So everybody loses every week except for one person.
Yeah.
So yeah, and sometimes, the losses are a little bit easier to take. So if you make semifinal of a tournament, you're like, oh, okay, well, there's a positive side to this. But if you lose in the first, second round, maybe a quarterfinal, you're like, it kind of leaves a bitter taste in your mouth. Whereas if you're getting constantly to the later stages of the tournaments, but it's hard.
And the injuries then, I mean, they essentially they made you make the decision to stop playing, stop traveling with tennis. What was that decision? Was it essentially an easy decision to make because you knew you just couldn't continue, or was it hard?
No, it was the hardest thing I ever had to do because, like I said, I was starting to turn the corner mentally. Um, I saw therapists. I was constantly trying to work on myself and trying to detach my self-worth from just a game, from a sport. And I was starting to understand that, okay, every single time I'm on the court, it's a choice. I choose to be here and I could take the best out of it. So I was starting to, like we say, nobody matures when they're told you have to be mature. It never happens that way. You start maturing when you're truly ready to accept things for what they are. And I was starting at 27 years old to start to be like, okay, I am me. I am Monica. Monica is a person. Monica has so much more to her life than holding a tennis racket and playing at these big events. So I get injured. My first injury was an elbow surgery. I basically had a severely compressed nerve, and that could have led to significant nerve damage if I did not take care of it. So I had my first surgery, and then coming back from that surgery, like every surgery, I went through the rehab process. Um, was still not entirely pain free at the beginning, and with pain, a lot of people compensate for injuries, and ended up screwing with my shoulder, and that led to another injury. So it started off as like a snowball, and then it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, rolling down the hill. So I had four surgeries on my right arm, three of them being the shoulder, one of them the elbow. So after my second surgery, I spent a lot of time in France training with the coach that I was working with, did all the rehab again. It was like 2.5, 3 years of just being in the rehab, working on getting my arm stronger, and was never really pain free, which was really tough. Doctors would tell me, okay, you're going to have to deal with the pain a little bit playing. And I was like, okay, I'm willing to do that, but this pain isn't normal. Like, there's still things that are going on that I recognize are not normal. So I came back on tour. I got a wild card into Madrid. And this was in 2022, and was slated to play that clay season and the French Open. I was going to get in on my protected ranking. And after that match in Madrid, I could barely lift my arm. It was so disappointing because so again, mentally at that point, I was so grateful to even be on a match court, to be on a tennis court playing, even though I was sad in a way because I still felt so much pain, but I was happy that I was able to compete. And after that match, I had called my mom before that tournament, and I knew something was wrong because I was getting blown off the court in practice because the pain to my shoulder was so much. I wasn't serving well. Um, I wasn't able to hang with these girls. And I knew in my heart, I was like, if I'm not able to do these things, it's not even worth coming back because I don't want to suffer through really bad losses because I know that physically I can't keep up. So after, my mom came and we had a big conversation, and I was like, look, mom, I don't know. I don't think my body is responding. I think I hurt myself again. Um and she's like, let's get through this match and let's see how things go. I competed incredibly well. Uh, I did get blown off the court in the second set. First set was very competitive, but after seeing that I couldn't raise my arm anymore, that night I had a talk with my mom, and we were like, I think it's time to hang it up. Because again, I'm not going to waste my time doing, this living in this circus of the tennis world and just kind of, going through the motions. I want to be able to compete and to win. And even to this day, if I pick up a tennis racket, there's only so long that I can play before I start feeling my shoulder again. So, I feel like I made the right decision. Was it the easiest thing to do? Yes and no, because easy, because I know exactly that it was time, but difficult because tennis had been my whole life for so long, and it was time to officially say goodbye. If I wouldn't have gotten injured, if I would have recovered to full capacity, there would be a world in which I would still be playing probably, and I would still be competing and hopefully competing at the highest level. But everything in life happens for a reason, whether I choose to see it that way or not. I think I've chosen to see it that way, even though sometimes I'm still in denial because I do miss playing. Um, there's a lot of things that I've been able to do, a lot of things that I've been able to experience, things that I've been able to accomplish post tennis that I've really wanted to do. Um, and it's led to a completely different life. And it's actually changed me a lot more than if I would have still been in this sheltered circle of tennis. I've become more independent because things are not done for me as much.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I have a husband who takes care of a lot of stuff. But, I have to take care of things that before were taken care of for me because I only needed to focus on one thing, and that was being a tennis player. But like I said, I matured so much. I became a different person. Um, and I carry myself a little bit differently now, having gone through all the stuff that I went through, that I realized that each thing that I went through, whether it was the depression after the Olympics, whether it was the realizing what's really important in life, the resilience to coming back after injuries, and the maturity to realize, look, it's time to say goodbye to something that was your whole life for so long. All of these things help shape me into the person that I am now. And I'm probably going to take that into motherhood as well, because I was not a very patient person when I was playing tennis, because everything, it's like instant gratification. You can get anything you want at the snap of a finger. And now it's like, okay, we have to be patient. We have to wait for certain things. We can't go crazy like we used to. You know, you start learning a lot more about yourself.
I mean, in your post-tennis career, you haven't stopped though, have you? I mean, you're now tackling Ironmans around the world and exploring destinations through those events, and also marathon running as well. What's been the highlight so far post-tennis?
I mean, getting to work in broadcasting has been something I really wanted to do ever since I started playing. So that's been really fun. I feel very comfortable in front of a camera. I feel like I can see tennis through a different lens that's not as emotional as I used to, because I used to see matches like, oh man, I can't believe I lost that one, or I wish I was in X player's position. And now I see it through a different lens.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I need to analyze and describe to the viewer what's going on to the best of my ability. But I think another highlight was, like you said, the Ironman and the marathon running. I was never a really big runner back in the day, but when I couldn't do things with my upper body, running became an outlet that helped me mentally. Kind of, it became a therapy, and so a couple miles here and there started turning into the longer distances. And the Ironman has been something super, super cool because it's three disciplines that I had to learn basically from zero. I had to learn how to swim properly. I mean, I know how to swim, but there's a difference in between, flopping in a pool and actually swimming. Cycling, there's a difference between riding, a recreational bike and riding a race bike and a tri bike. And then the running, learning how to fuel yourself properly, learning how to properly train so that your paces start getting lower. And learning the mental fortitude
Yeah.
to be on a course for 13 plus hours and need to still, have that goal in mind and reach the finish line.
That's
It's been
yeah.
incredible.
I'd struggle with that, I think.
We all do.
As well as all the other three disciplines: cycling, running, and swimming. Well, in terms of the Ironmans and triathlons, have you got a favourite destination where you've competed so far?
Well, I'm always going to be biased to Puerto
Of
Rico,
course.
and they have a wonderful half distance 70.3 Ironman, which I love so much. I know a lot of the race organizers there because they actually did work in the tennis world at one point, so it's been really cool to kind of
Nice.
see them in those roles and now in a different
Yeah.
role. But for me, I think the number one has been the Ironman World Championship, which was my first full distance Ironman that I qualified for. in Nice. That was incredible. That was my first time to like the southern part of France, and seeing that part of France was incredible. I had a lot of friends that were doing it. So I was surrounded by a lot of support. My mom got to see me compete. I brought my tri coach and his family, and so I felt very supported in my first full distance, long distance triathlon. It was very scary, but the destination was absolutely stunning. I mean, where we cycled, it was like, wow.
Yeah, incredible part of the world. I'm flying to Nice in a few weeks, actually, not to compete in any sort of triathlon, but to attend the Monaco Grand Prix, which
I think you're going to have a great time, because we did go to Monaco just the day after the race, and it's only 30 minutes from Nice.
Exactly.
So I thought the destination itself was great. The water, running along the water, lots of small restaurants, coffee shops, everything. It truly doesn't feel like you're in France. It was a beautiful place.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Marathon wise, because you've done the New York Marathon, haven't you? Have I read it properly? Are you going for the 6 big marathons, or have you already completed the 6?
I've done 4 of the 6. They actually just added a 7.
Did they?
But
they're
still awarding. There's a 7-star medal. They're still awarding the people who have done 6. They're still awarding them with a 6-star medal.
So the 6 would be London, New York, Boston.
No, I've done Boston, London, New York, and Chicago.
Right.
And what's left is Berlin and Tokyo. And now the 7th one is in Sydney.
Is it right? Okay. So you got 3 to go.
I desperately do want to finish them, because I feel like after Ironman, running 26 miles only, it feels like, okay, that the race is going to be a little under 4 hours, so that's okay. And everything in Ironman is, 5 hours to, the really, really big ones, which could be 10 to 13.
It'd be 2 weeks for me. In terms of the marathons, what favourite destination then out of the 4 marathons you've done, in terms of running around the city and just taking it all in as you?
Oh, that's really tough, because I love the London Marathon, because you pass by, a lot of these really big landmarks.
It's such a special
which was really
event.
cool.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. And I had actually done, the year I did it in 2023, I did Boston on a Monday and I ran London on the Sunday. So we did the double.
Of course you did.
Which was insane. It was insane, but we got this unique opportunity. So we wanted to capitalize on it, obviously. And we were like, okay, let's just do it. It went amazingly well. It was great. But my favorite was actually Chicago, just because of the route that we took. It was a great run course, because it was a point to point, it was a big loop. So you ended where you started, which was awesome. And you ended in the city, so you didn't have to go too far after you were finished with the race. And I had lived in Chicago for about 9 months in 2019. So it was nice kind of being familiar with the area, and I knew places, and I went to places that I had used to go to. So it was a very special week. I was also extremely sick that week. I had a really bad cold. So all during the race, I was like, should I drop out? Should I drop out? Should I drop out? Because I couldn't breathe. And I was like, you know what? If I drop out of this race, the problem is that instead of having 2 stars, I'm going to have to still have 3 stars left to complete.
Yeah.
And, that marathon, I didn't really give myself much expectation. I'm like, just cross the finish line when you cross. Still did a sub 4-hour marathon somehow, which I was incredibly proud of. But then I think I spent like 2 hours in the bathtub, just kind of like laying there dead to the world. But Chicago is really fun. But I'm really excited for Berlin and Tokyo, and obviously going to Sydney and doing the 7th one as well.
Yeah, absolutely. They're great events. So in this part of the podcast, Monica, your perfect sports event itinerary or adventure, what I'm looking for is, you've spent so many years as a player, of course, but from a fan's perspective, or going out on a hike or an adventure of whatever it may be, what's your perfect day out? What's your perfect itinerary when it comes to sports travel and adventure?
One place that I have visited quite a bit, and I have quite a bit of knowledge of is in Paris. So if anybody goes for the French Open, this would be my ideal day.
Love it.
Um, I usually would stay as a player closer to the tennis courts, which is it's great. But when I went for the Olympics, I stayed in La Marais, which was incredible for so many reasons. You have so many great coffee shops around you. And I'm always looking for a quality cup of coffee. So it needs to be like really good tasting espresso that's not sour, and you need to have somebody who can do and froth alternative milks very well. So for me, finding an almond milk latte, like the perfect one, was really tough. So I actually have, a few coffee shops that I would like to go to, and I would start with my perfect cup of coffee, whether it's actually, you know what? Before then, let's hold off on the coffee. I would like to do a
I
run.
was gonna.
So I would like to do a
I
run
knew a run was coming
first.
up. Yeah, a run.
Sorry, the run is
A run
first.
along the
The
Seine,
run is first.
along the river.
I would run along the Seine. And it's really nice because even when you're in La Marais, you have the Seine right there. And the easiest thing is they all have sidewalks, they all have walkways. So I would run from La Marais, where I started, kind of near Notre Dame. And I would take it all the way down either to the Eiffel Tower or to a point that I know that's close to the hotels that I used to stay next to Roland Garros. So I would say it's a 5 mile run, 6 mile run, however long you want to make it. But getting to the Eiffel Tower is a really great point, because then you can take a lot of pictures and then make your way back. It's
You
very straightforward.
get the metro back,
If you want, yeah, if you want.
or you're going to run back. Yeah.
I would run back, especially in the morning. The mornings are very great, not very hot. Beautiful mornings in Paris. So I would start always with a run, go back, shower, change, then go for a nice little walk to a coffee shop. I found a lot of really good ones in La Marais. There's not one in particular that I would say is great, but there's so many that are very unique. I did find one that's Australian owned. So the owner actually came from Sydney to open up his own coffee shop in Paris. And it's pure Australian coffee. I'd never had it before. It is delicious. So it's called O Coffee. It's closer to the Eiffel Tower. So if you want to take the metro, which I learned during the Olympics is super easy to take. You get a metro card on your phone. You just, even that metro app can tell you the stops and what transfers you need to take.
It's
so
very
it's
good.
super easy taking the metro. I would get either an avocado toast if you're about that life, or if you're like me and you need your authentic Parisian croissant, authentic French croissant, there's a boulangerie at every single corner. And believe me, if you can't find one, just smell one. They're around. So I would do my coffee, my croissant, and then, like I said, the metro is very easy to take in Paris. There's a lot of sights to see, whether you want to see the Arc de Triomphe, whether you want to go to the Eiffel Tower, Versailles. There's so many beautiful places. If you love tennis and if you go at the time of the French Open, lots of metros will leave you exactly at different stops around the grounds, which is great. You can spend the whole day there.
It's a great area where Roland Garros is, isn't it? Boulogne-Billancourt. It's because, of course, it's such a sporting district. You've got Paris Saint-Germain, Parc des Princes is there. You've got the rugby stadium literally opposite the Parc des Princes, and then Roland Garros there as well. It's brilliant.
It's great, and it's a very quiet neighborhood. I feel like it's very beautiful. There's a lot of small bistros around as well if you want to grab a bite for lunch or something. It's super, super nice, very quiet, very easy to get to. Like I said, many metro stops around. So if you're going for the tennis, it's absolutely perfect. If you're going there at any other time, there's so much to do around the city. There's so many good shopping spots if you're about the shopping life. It doesn't necessarily need to be shopping on the main strip. It could be anywhere. I mean, Paris has so much to offer, and the train system, I feel like, in Paris is really great. One thing that I haven't done yet that I would really like to do is go and visit Champagne. and actually go to some of these vineyards around, because it's a 45-minute train ride from Paris. Essentially to go to some of these regions where you can have wonderful wine, wonderful champagne.
Monica, I know all about champagne because that's where I got engaged.
Well, then what am I doing talking about champagne? You should be giving us the perfect itinerary. But I mean, the thing is, like, France is so wonderful in so many ways because you have so much to do. And then obviously once you're done with your day drinking, or you're done with Roland Garros, or you're done with shopping, there are so many great restaurant options, from fine dining, super fancy schmancy eateries, to small bistros. A lot of really good international cuisine. And my favorite, honestly, in Paris is finding good Moroccan restaurants.
Oh, right.
Because there are a lot of people from Morocco who come, and they make incredible couscous, incredible chicken, incredible vegetables, and pretty much an all-balanced meal if you're a tennis player. So I would love having Moroccan food while I was in France.
The great thing as well is, I mean, even inexpensive food in Paris is still lovely, isn't it? It still tastes so good.
Yeah, that's why I say, whether it's a bistro or fine dining, you can't go wrong.
So I think so your perfect sports travel itinerary, what we're doing, we're going to Paris, we're taking a run along the Seine to wake up in the morning. And then we're getting ready for the day. We're going for a walk. We're seeing the sights, and then we're going to the French Open.
But you need the coffee, because without coffee, some people can't function, like myself.
The coffee, and then the dinner in the evening, and then the next day we're going to Champagne, essentially.
Exactly.
That sounds like a pretty good weekend to me. Well, Monica, it's been brilliant talking to you, all things sports travel, your career, adventures, seeing the world. But we, of course, end on the Planet Playground podcast with finding out what your Planet Playground is, your favourite destination for sports, events and adventures, and the place that you always love to visit. So tell us, Monica Puig, what is your Planet Playground?
I think a lot of people are expecting me to say this answer, and it would be Puerto Rico. It has quickly started to become a destination that is known for amazing entertainment. We have some of the best concerts in the world. Right now, Bad Bunny is taking over the world and has decided to do a 3-month residency in Puerto Rico. So entertainment-wise, we're covered. We're starting to host some of the biggest sporting events. We've done a lot of really great exhibitions, which I was recently a part of. There was a Legends football match between Real Madrid and Barcelona there. Some of the former stars of each team came to play. We have MLB starting to play some great baseball over there. So it's becoming this place that sport is starting to flock to.
Baseball is popular, isn't it, in Puerto Rico? That's almost like the number one.
Yeah. It's the number one sport. So naturally, when you hold World Baseball Classic, which is this huge tournament where all the teams from all over the world play for their country, basically like an Olympics, but for baseball. And Puerto Rico is one of the biggest venues for that. And we have so many players from baseball who come from the island and are representing Puerto Rico on that global level. So it's very, very big. And then we also have our own Caribbean league. So many local teams, and they play in Puerto Rico, which is great.
And I'd imagine it's quite easy to get tickets as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. Like, everybody wants to go to one. Everybody loves to support them. They have their own teams, kind of like the equivalent of what basketball and American football are here. Soccer is also really starting to grow. Football in your case is really starting to grow over there as well. So when it comes to entertainment and sport, Puerto Rico is becoming a huge hub for all of this. In terms of adventure, you have a huge rainforest in Puerto Rico, which is a great place to hike, to explore. There's a couple waterfalls. We have a lot of really exotic birds, a lot of exotic mammals. We have the ocean everywhere, being that we are a very small island, lots of great marine life, lots of great surfing. Puerto Rico is a very popular surf destination. And it being a very small island, you can make your way around the island all day in a car. There's lots of mountains. I mean, you have the perfect scenario, because if you love mountains and greenery and all that stuff, we have that. If you love the beach, we also have that. And it's a great tourist destination, especially for people who live in the United States, because it's considered a domestic destination. You don't need your passport. It uses American currency. So you can go to Puerto Rico and feel like you're leaving the country without leaving the country. Everybody in Puerto Rico speaks English, so it's very easy to communicate over there if you're a foreigner. A lot of flights from Europe are starting to make it a regularly scheduled stop. I know from the UK, from Germany, from Spain, there are international flights that are coming into Puerto Rico, which makes it really great for a lot of people to come and explore what this is all about. There's a lot of history as well. We have a lot of old forts that have been very well preserved. With detailed history on what happened in each fort from war, from, protecting against invasion. There's still a lot of really old cannons. There's a lot of old ruins. So in terms of sport, entertainment, adventure, history, culture, lots of mom and pop restaurants in Old San Juan that honestly, you don't have to know if they're good or not. They just are, because the recipes have been handed out from generations. And if you're looking for a place that has everything, I know I'm biased because I'm from there, but every time I go back to Puerto Rico, there's always something new to discover.
And of course, it is the place where the pina colada was invented.
Yes. So if you're looking for good drinks, we also have that. It is the rum capital of the world. So, that is our biggest pride, is rum.
Love it. That sounds like Puerto Rico sounds like an ideal Planet Playground, really. So we'll put it on the list. Monica Puig, thank you so much for being guest number 1 on episode 1 of the Planet Playground podcast as we explore the world through sport and adventure. I hope you've enjoyed that as much as I have.
Oh, I have. We've known each other for a very long time, working together as co-MCs in Abu Dhabi, to now supporting you in this great journey. And this has turned out to be, I think, the most amazing start to what is going to be an incredible podcast.
Thank you so much. And I will see you very soon. And good luck with all of the pregnancy and everything that entails over the next few months.
Thank you so much. I can't wait.
Thanks for watching this Planet Playground podcast as we discover our world through its best sports events and adventures. You can watch much more right here.